Soul, stories of sisterhood, triumph, and inspiration. And Strength of My Soul is a collection, is an anthology of 27 amazing women who have the power and the courage to share their individual stories of hope, individual stories of overcoming insurmountable odds. And today I'm so delighted, just honored to present to you one of our co-authors, Anjelis Oliveira. I messed that up, but she definitely is going to correct me. Angie, I met Angie a couple of years ago at one of my accounts at the University of Miami, where she serves as a nursing director of the infusion center. She has a bachelor's in nursing. She also holds a master's in nursing. She holds a master's in health administration, and she is currently working on her PhD in nursing. At the same time, she is a mother of three men, three small boys. So I want to say welcome, Angie, and I'm so glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, SharRon.
Well, I have to tell you, when I met you a couple of years ago and I saw you, there's something about you that made me know that there was more behind the story, more behind the white uniform and the nursing manager. I knew there had to be something because you had such a depth of your character and such a depth of your spirit that I knew I wanted to know more. I'm just so excited that you are part of this journey, part of this movement. Well, I have
Thank you
to
so much.
say, oh, you're welcome so much. When I had a chance to read your story over and over again, what stood out for me is that your metamorphosis. It seemed that every time you were faced with one challenge, somehow you were able to overcome it, that you were able to dig deep to really find a way to win and find a way to survive. Tell me, where does that inner strength come from, and how did you develop that inner strength?
Well, I've learned recently that, contrary to what many people say that you're strong and you're a strong woman, it's not about being strong. It's about being able to break but get back up. So rather than strong, I call myself resilient. And and I'm always gonna fight, and I'm always gonna fight to come back and get back on where I need to be. Because the truth of the matter is there's very little things that we can control. And one of the things that I've lived by since I'm very young, I was very blessed to realize is that I can only control how I react to things. I can't control what anybody else does except what I can do about it. So that's something that's helped me out a lot. Um, I am also a very spiritual person, and my mom passed when I was very young. So I've always felt that she always looked over me, and I've always had this extra or sixth sense of how to get through things, and gave me strength that maybe I don't quite understand yet, but I think it came from her.
Wow. I know your mother died when you were very young from a tragic accident. What do you remember about your mom? You said that she's that person that gives you strength. What do you remember about her?
I don't. I actually don't have any memory of her. I don't. I have very little memory of my childhood, and I think it has to do with the fact now as you grow and you work on yourself. That was a very traumatic experience for me, and but I think her love and nurture that she gave me those 2.5 years gave me that resilience, that strength that has helped me get through life and through my struggles. But unfortunately, I don't have any memory of her, and the pictures are limited. But I know she's with me.
Oh, knowing that someone is with you had to be that common thread throughout your life. Tell us a little bit about your dad. After your mother passed, tell me what your relationship was like with your dad, and how involved was he in your life?
So he wasn't involved at all. Apparently, from what I hear, my dad's family was not in agreement with my dad and my mother's relationship. My dad's family are European. He's Portuguese, and my mom, we're Dominican, and we have dark skin, and they don't. So they weren't very happy. I guess they were well off, and we weren't. But they loved each other, and I came from that relationship, and what I hear, he was very loving. I do have his last name, which is Oliveira. Um, and he was very loving those 2 years. At the time when my mom passed, I believe there was a conversation between him and my grandmother that he wanted to go ahead and take me with him. But my grandmother said, your family doesn't agree or didn't agree of your relationship with my daughter, so I think she's better off being with me or with our family. So I believe he called a couple times after that, and then we've never heard of him again.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just had to take all that in. So, not knowing your mom, not knowing you're really having a relationship with your dad, your chapter starts off with introducing us to your Tia in the
Yeah.
hospital room. How did you come to live with her in the first place?
So here comes my mom again. According to what I've heard, I was living in the Dominican Republic after my mom passed, and I was living with my grandmother. She had a lot of issues of her own, very problematic. So according to my aunt, my mom kept coming to her in dreams and telling her, "You need to get my daughter here. You need to bring her." And at 5 years old, she did that, and my mom never came to her again about that. So yeah, I'm here, and I was raised with her because of my mom, and that's so one of the stories that I can tell you where I felt that she, has always been with me to try to, even though she wasn't here physically, but to try to do the best she can wherever she's at now. So that's how I came to live with her. She's actually my grandmother's sister, so she's my grand aunt. Yeah, she's the oldest of the family.
Wow. So she was the matriarch of the family.
Yes.
So how long did you stay with her? And can you take us to that scene in the hospital? I read your story and that scene just captured me. And I'm like, whoa. So tell us about your relationship with your grand aunt and also share with us, if you don't mind, how did you come to that space, that situation in the hospital? And what was that entire situation like for you?
Well, we were since I was 5 years old. She took care of me, and she was a mother figure for me. Um, Obviously, very different than I assume growing up with my mother would have been, just because of the age difference and different, generation. But she was, she did the best she can. Um, and I wasn't really, I was back and forth between her house or my house at that time and my cousin's house. It was like a reprieve for me to go there because she was like so strict, right? So I guess during that time, I started exploring with my sexuality, and from what I understand, she found out that I was sexually active, and according to her, that's or she blamed me for the stroke because of that. I had a really hard time, and I've, had to. And then after she had her stroke in September, in December, they took her to the Dominican Republic to recover, and I was left to stay with my cousins and my uncle and his wife. Um, Not a very healthy or supportive environment at all. My grandmother did come back. My tia came back in February, but at 15 or 16 at that time, I was like, if I go back to live with this lady, I'm gonna kill her. You know, um, And I actually lived with that guilt for a very long time. And not till recently that I've been working on myself do I realize, there's so many other things that have happened in her life that hasn't caused her to have a stroke. So this wasn't it, you know. But it took me a very long time to deal with that, and I lived with that guilt for a very long time. But I'm happy to say that um, it's better now.
Wow, I can imagine carrying that guilt with me and thinking that I was responsible for hurting my grandmother.
Yeah.
How did your cousins and your relatives, how did they and why do you think they blamed you? And what did that do to your spirit to feel that you were being ostracized by everybody? Tell me what that experience had to be like for you.
You know, it was hard. I mean, I remember, I mean, a cousin of mine, she's about, if I was 15, she was something close to 30 at that time. And she literally, my grandmother, in that stretcher kicked me out of the hospital. And my cousin literally picked me up and kicked me out of the hospital that I wasn't to be there because it was my fault. After that, like I said, my grandmother left. She came home and I wasn't really involved in the recovery. I was very distant. Um, because I felt guilty. I felt that the least I had to do with her, the better, because that way I couldn't hurt her. So during that time, I was in high school and I was playing sports, and that's what I would do. I would go to school and play sports until she left in December. That she left me to be taken care of by my cousins and her brother, which is my granduncle, and his wife. And things changed very quickly. I had to change schools. I wasn't allowed to play sports. So the only thing that I had to try to keep me on track or my mind off of things was taken away from me. And those were very hard months for me. I mean, again, like I have to say that there was something more and beyond me that helped me get through those times. I was there from December until July 1st, where at 16, said, I need to move on and I need to move by myself. So during that time, I was going to rent an efficiency per se. I was working and going to school, and it turned out to be a bed in a room, um, and that was at a family friend's house. And I was there for July until about October. In August of 1998, I met my ex-husband, and as bad or as difficult as that experience might have been, like I have to say that him and my kids saved my life.
Wow. When you were with your great uncle
Yeah,
and you shared a story that how you were violated,
yeah.
how did you start to understand who you were? You're moving. Everybody is blaming you. Your mother is not there. Your dad is not there. What did you draw on, and how did you keep yourself give yourself some sense of sanity? And what did you understand about who you were in the world without even having someone confirm and validate who you were and how valuable you were? What made you hold on?
Sharon, I'm still working on that. That is still a work in progress. I can tell you that um, I've learned recently that my first real relationship was with my son, with my oldest son. And everything that I've done until very recently has been for my kids. So the resolve came from taking care of them and providing for them. Not until very recently do I actually feel that um, I was worth it or it was for me. Everything was for them, and that's why I say that my kids saved my life.
Now, we have a lot in common. I would say that my son, who's almost 22 right now, is he's the person who taught me how to love because I had so much trauma and drama in my life. I started just to numb out, and I was not connecting with anything or anybody in any type of substantive way. So take us back to that place. You met your ex-husband Edgar. You met him. He's coming from this situation, not feeling loved, not feeling validated, not feeling seen, not feeling valued. And here comes Edgar. What was it about him that you said, let me just pitch my wagon to you? Were you escaping a situation or were you looking for love or a variety of both?
Well, I was definitely looking for love. I was definitely looking to be accepted. I was looking to be taken care of. And at the beginning, he provided safety that I've now understand I've never really had. I didn't grow up with safety. The most important person in my life just one day, obviously not at her fault, left me. And so did my dad. And these are things that I'm understanding now. So yeah, he represented love, acceptance, and to a certain extent, safety. Somebody that was going to actually look over me and defend me and take care of me. Obviously, we were very young. We were both very unhealthy emotionally because he was also running away. from whatever situation he had going on in his life. So it was like perfect. It was two people that were troubled and trying to get away from their situations, and that's why at 2 months you're like, yeah, let's move in together. Because it was like we didn't have option. We didn't have another option really. Um, and it was very challenging, but I can say that that relationship and me, at least during that time, kind of feeling loved and accepted helped me. And then obviously came my kids, and then you grow and you learn, and that's where education comes in. One of the things that I can tell you about Edgar is that he used to tell me, he goes, make sure you go to school so you don't have to put up with this from anybody, you know?
How ironic is that? How ironic is the person who's abusing you, encouraging you at the same time? So
Yep.
when so here's Eka, and he was providing you some sense of safety and some security. When did you start understanding that this was your relationship was kind of abnormal? I love when you talked about that you were being in his classroom, and the teacher started talking about being battered and domestic violence, and you're like, oh, that's me.
Yep.
I'm experiencing getting hit. I'm getting punched. I'm getting pushed. I'm getting verbally abused. What was that aha moment like for you?
Let me tell you, and I think that that further strengthened my desire to go to school and be educated, and because it just allows you to really open your eyes and your mind to what's going on around you. Literally, I remember sitting in this class, and I think it was human growth and development or something, and it was at Miami-Dade at Wilson's campus, and I was sitting in this class, and they're talking about domestic violence, and I'm like, oh my God, that's me, and this is not the way it's supposed to be. And it was school and it was education, and I can't stress how important it is to learn and to educate yourself and open your mind to all the different possibilities. And I think that's what education has brought to me, and that's why it's such an important part of my life.
When I think about you, I remember when I was with Biogen and coming in and meeting you. And one of the things that was so evident was that I thought you were brilliant. I think I told you that. I just thought you were just brilliant. And it's interesting, even throughout your unfortunate situation with Edgar, you always knew that you were smart. You were in AP classes, you did very well in school. And what gave you that discipline, even then, before Echo, when you were dealing with domestic violence and when he was punching you? And how did you know that you still were smart? And how did you know that education was your getaway to a better life? How did you know how to study in the midst of all that trauma and all that turbulence? How did you focus enough to do so well in school?
I have to say that I'm blessed. I've always been very fortunate to be very, good at school, book smart, what they call it. And I never really lost that. I never, yes, there's times that you don't feel beautiful and many other things that I would put myself down upon, but it was never my ability. I was always very confident, at least in that aspect of my life, that I can do this. It was just something in me, and that I never really lost. The other aspects, of course, of myself and my self-esteem did suffer from the abuse, but it was never my ability to do better. Let me tell you, another thing that very motivated me very much was the fact that everybody thought that I couldn't do it. Everybody thought that I was gonna, I was looked at upon as a black sheep of the family, as the orphan, as the one that was never gonna get anything. And I was like, no, no, that's not just because you say so, it's not going to happen, and I finished my bachelor's degree, and I finished top of my class, valedictorian, magna cum laude. I mean, at that time, I had two kids, and I had to make a decision when I separated from Edgar that I needed to, my kids went away. I sent my kids away from the beginning of 2004, that was my second semester of nursing school, to May 2005 with my grandmother, the one that, had issues taking care of me when I was young. And I had to do it because I was like, either I make this sacrifice now or I sacrifice the rest of my life and the rest of their lives. And I did that and I traveled back and forth and I went to school and I worked. And I was the valedictorian of my class. And I organized my pinning ceremony and I was magna cum laude. And you're going to believe that there was no one at my graduation.
Wow. I admire you so much. I admire you so much. Tell me about your kids are gone, you're studying, you're working, you're trying to take care of yourself financially, take care of also sending money, I'm sure, back to home. How did you deal with the heaviness of it all those different demands on you, all this responsibility? What kept you going in the midst of that? Why
You
didn't you
just,
succumb to the pressure?
you just do it. You can't think about it. There's certain things you just have to do. You don't have a choice. You got to do it. You spend all this energy thinking about it and this is so much and you need that energy. I feel I need that energy to get through it, to go work those 12-hour shifts, to go to school, to study, to travel and try to have a life and to see my kids at that time. So it's just I've never been one to think about too much of what I'm doing. I just do it. If I know I need to do it, I just do it. And I've noticed again back to going to school, the hardest thing is to start. But once you're in it, you find a way to get through it.
Wow. You are the epitome of resilience. And I just so admire you. And I'm so happy that I feel so honored that I know you personally. When you were going through this process and going through school, and nobody's there, cheering you on, nobody's there motivating you and inspiring you. And I love in your piece where you talked about your graduation and that you're happy, but at the same time there's some sadness because the same people who told you that you would never amount to anything were not there. Bring us back to that experience. That morning you getting up, you put on your cap and gown. Take us into that process and walk us through that day of what it felt like from getting up, putting on that rope, and crossing that stage. What was that like for you?
So I have to say, during the whole time where I was in school, I had friends. I had a very good support system and friends. So they helped me a lot. Um, and I also made very good friends in nursing school. And in at least my experience, you can't go to nursing school without a group of people to kind of carry you on. And just like I helped them, they helped me. So I was very excited. I was, excited about doing it. To me, honestly, if I'm brutally honest, it was a slap in the face for everyone that said you can't do it. So I was very happy that I finally got it done. And I was able to on it shut everybody up about it. I did do something. So I was very happy about that. For different reasons, the people that were there, my friends, my aunt, I believe she was out of town, and my kids, they were still out of town. There was no one there at my graduation, and and it was very sad. I remember that, during the graduation, everything was fine, and and I everyone, you walk through the stage and you always had a group of people clapping and you can hear the people's family in the stands, and I didn't have that. But I had my classmates, which I helped, and they helped me very much. And then outside it was hard, I had my classmates taking pictures with their families and there was nobody there for me. And it's something that I still struggle to think about because it was a very bittersweet moment, for me.
I can't imagine being so recognized by your peers and recognized by nursing school. So what keeps you going? In that situation where there's very little support, very little accolades, very little go, go, go. And what made you know to keep moving forward? You say you always find a way to move forward, but there's something besides your mother watching over you that you mentioned before. There's something that drives you. And I always like to ask the authors if they had some words of advice to share with other women. Help us understand what was that driving voice. How did you stay motivated in the midst of the mayhem, in the midst of the uncertainty, in the midst of the loneliness? What made you stay committed and focused so that you were able to accomplish not only 1 degree, but 3 degrees and working on your fourth degree?
Um, you know, I have to say that for a very long time, it was my kids. It was wanting to give them that example of what to look forward to, what to look up to. And I want them to value education, and I want them to see that, yes, it's hard and it stresses you out. And, every minute you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? But I think they need that. I think that I am the person that they look up to, and I need to give them a good example. Um, and like I said, to very recently, I would do things for my children. And it's not about, people look at me and say, because you're very focused and driven. And no, let me say something. Like, it's not a clear cut, straight path. Like, you deviate 100 million times. It's just trying to find your way back. I wasn't always focused. I wasn't always driven. I went out, had fun, and did all a million things I probably shouldn't be doing, but always found a way to get back and to find myself. And my kids played a very big part on that. Now I can say that the PhD I'm doing for me. The PhD is something that, as ridiculous as this is gonna sound, when I was in my bachelor's graduation from a bachelor's degree, I saw the robes and I saw a funny little hat, and that's just something I always wanted to do. So I'm getting my PhD so I can wear my funny little hat on the stage. Obviously now, I find a lot more value to it. I think it's a great experience. I love the program that I'm in, and again, it's broadened my mind. Extremely, compared to a bachelor's to a master's level and now to a PhD. It definitely makes you think more critically, and even helps you personally because you just become a lot more reflective. Um, but yeah, the PhD is something that I'm actually doing for me. Then this is the first degree that I'm doing for me, and it's not just to give my kids an example, which of course I'm doing anyway, but this is something that I'm definitely looking forward for me.
Can I just tell you something that is so impressive? You know how people say, "Oh, I'm just getting a PhD because I just wanted to do it. It's something for me." And because you are so okay with your brilliance, it's not something that's outside the realm. Many times people talk about goals and they think, "Oh God, the goal is so far away that I could never achieve it." And you're like, "Well, I'm gonna get this PhD, so I'm gonna do it for me." And what a blessing it is to know that you are so capable of doing something. I call that respecting our gifts and respecting our intellect and respecting our talent. And I just love you just saying here like, oh, I'm gonna go to the store. Oh, I'm gonna get a PhD, and I'm just gonna go and I'm doing it for me. And then knowing in your spirit that you can do it, that you can do it. I wonder why do you, when you think about many of the women that you work with, you also are a manager and you deal with a lot of patients. How important is knowing that you can do something to being really able to achieve it? How important is that understanding, that knowing part, as far as in the midst of achieving something? Can you say a little bit about that?
It's very important. I mean, I can say that um it's helped me actually achieve my goals. I don't think that there's anything that I've set myself up to achieve that I haven't. The thing is that you have to realize that it's hard. It's hard work. It does take dedication, and sometimes when you want to go and spend, Christmas Eve or Christmas with your family, no, you have to sit down and you need to study and you need to write this paper. And a lot of times when I was working on my master's, there's a lot of papers, and my friends were partying or having a get together, and I was in the kids. I might be there, my kids might be there, um, but I was, typing my paper, and it's always something that you know that you always have to do something, and it's hard. And I think that a lot of people, it doesn't have to do with the fact that they don't think they can do it, but when it gets hard, they're like, oh no, no, this is too hard, and they just give up, and they just don't know that if they just keep going, it gets better and it's worth it at the end. Um, Definitely having faith in yourself and your ability, and even if your ability is not, you're not very confident, but knowing that you just have to do a little bit of extra work. I remember, one of my things to my friends is like, go to school, do something with your life, and I had this friend that I spoke to her like that, and when she started in remedial classes, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, that's okay. I mean, and one thing that I say a lot is like, time is gonna pass anyway. A year, 2 years from now, either you did something with it or you did it. It's really up to you what you decide to do with your time. But time, before you know it, a decade has passed by and you're still in the same place that you were before. So I told her that I'm like, time is gonna pass anyway. Get a good, background on you've been out of school for a while, and we lost communication. But I know now, as far as I heard, she got her nurse practitioner at Barry University. So it's just knowing that I'm the kind of person that I'd rather do something with my time. So going to school for me, it's hard and it is stressful, but I think that the benefits are much greater. And education is something that no one can take away from you. No one can take those degrees from me because I earned them. And I think that's very important. Everything else, my nursing license can be taken away from me for any random reason, but my degrees cannot, And the education and the perspective that I got from going to school um, helped you personally as well as professionally.
So tell us, take us through your day. I know that you have three sons, a full-time job, and and you're a nursing manager. Because remember, I know you from work,
Yeah.
and you are in school. How do you keep all those balls in the air, and how do you prioritize your life to make sure that you are doing a good job, being a good mom, and also being good to you? How do you balance all of those different types of variables?
At no point am I going to say that this is a perfect process. You take it day by day, task by task. And I've learned I am the biggest procrastinator you can ever meet. I
Really?
fool myself and say that I work well under pressure. It's not. I'm just a procrastinator. And, it's just something that I don't think about, SharRon. Like, it's people don't believe me when I say I just don't think about it. I just do it. And when you know that you have to go to work, okay, I go to work, I do what I need to do, and I come home and do what I need to do with the kids. And my kids are great, let me say. My oldest is great, and he's very, good at sometimes they have to cook for themselves, and that's okay. I tell you that's okay because one day I'm not going to be here and you're going to have to make your own dinner. You don't want to starve. So, my kids are great. I have good friends. And I just do it. And I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just something that you do and you don't think about it. You just have to do it. I don't put stuff in a planner and every minute of my life is, no, it's not like that. It's just, you get it done because you don't have a choice. You just do it.
I love when you say that. It's interesting. I remember being a single mom myself, going and working and traveling. I have traveled my son's entire life. And people used to think that, with bad parenting, he cooked for himself, he cooked for me. My son started writing out the bills when he was 14 and 15 years old. I was out of town. Here's the checkbook. Write the bills. Here's my credit card. Go get back to school. Go get us some food. And you find a way to do what you need to do, even though it doesn't look like the norm, whatever that is. And took a lot of hits from some of my friends to say, "SharRon, why are you parenting that way?" Well, when my son went to college, he knew how to shop, cook, pay bills. And he was a good investor. He had to learn that. He had no idea, and he was so good with money because he saw what it cost to keep the lights on. He saw what it cost to keep the cable on. So it really deepened our relationship, and he really valued me because he knew what it took to run a household. I mean, do some of your friends tell you the same thing? Like, oh my God, you're putting on so much responsibility on your children. Do you hear things like that, or do you know that you don't really care about what they say because you're really doing what you need to do to make your family function?
I have, but you know what? This is a family, and this is a family affair. So if I have to work, sometimes this is now the first time that I don't have two jobs. Many times I've had to work two jobs, because being a single parent and trying to provide my kids with the life I feel that I deserve because I work hard and the life that I want to give them. And it's not that, I mean, I have these conversations about, buying, it's not that we have lavish taste or they have brand names, but at least if God, they want to eat pizza one day, I can do that, whatever the case may be. And this is a family, and we're a family. And you know what? If I have to work two jobs and I have to work 10 hours a day, then you come home and you make you and your brother's food. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, And you're learning how to take care of yourself. My kids do their own laundry. They put their own. I don't need to do their laundry. I mean, I'm not going to be there, and I'm going to say something like, one of the things that um I found myself doing, because of my whole experience with my mom passing, is that, what about if I do pass tomorrow? What about if something does happen to me tomorrow? You need to be able to take care of yourself. I'm here to guide you, I'm here to provide for you. Um, um, but you need to be able to fend for yourself. One of the things that I remember is with my middle son, he used to not want to do his homework if I wasn't sitting next to him. And I'm like, listen to me. I went to school. I did this. You need to try. And once you try, if you don't get it, come to me. But don't come to me if you don't try because I'm not going to do it for you. And yeah, it was a struggle. And he almost failed first grade. And I'm like, if you fail first grade, this is on you because I've already done this. And I'm here to help you, but I'm not going to do it for you. And now he struggled a lot. And I was like, but this is you. This is your only responsibility. You need to do this. Um, and he's an AB student now, going to high school next year, and he has very good discipline. And he's my oldest is like me. He's very smart. School comes to him very easy. But my middle one, although it takes him longer, he is doing better because he has better studying skills. You
That's
know.
just a testament to you. That's just a testament to your example. And also, I think our children rise up to our expectations. If you have high expectations, they really will not only achieve them, but exceed our expectations. I also, when you think about it, how can they not want to do well? They see their mom doing homework. They see their mom working on her fourth degree and working a full-time job. I know that that just had to be something that motivates them. Totally motivates them. I know I'm motivated by you. I remember coming to visit your account and seeing not only how you have to really be such a leader in your at home, leader with your subordinates, but also leader with your patients. So tell me about that. I have seen you interact with your patients, and what comes to mind is your level of sensitivity and your level of compassion. What does that sensitivity and compassion come from? You're very patient, even with all the balls that you juggle, and even with all the responsibilities at the University of Miami. You still find a way to connect with your patients. Tell me, how do you do that, and why is that important?
I have to thank neurology for that, and the University of Miami. My background is ER, and ER can be very difficult. Working in the ER, you're at the patient's worst moment sometime. No one ever really wants to be there. And for the years I was in the ER, I have to say that I went through a time where I was very jaded. Um, and it wasn't I feel that I always took care of my patients. I advocated for my patients, but the sensitivity and the empathy wasn't always there, and it was very hard doing that in the ER and doing it full time to the level that I was doing it, working sometimes 5 6 nights a week. Um, so when I got to neurology, it was very interesting because it was like it was meant to be. I found a classmate and I said, I was working in the ER at Jackson, and she was someone I went to school with, and I'm like, hey, are you, do you know of anybody that's looking for, a nurse during the day, a day job for a nurse? And she's like, yeah, neurology's hiring. I started there May 2008. I was there for a month, and then they decided to hire somebody else. Um, but during that time, in order for me to secure that job, this is where I'm saying that sacrifice and hard work pays off. I was working night and day, and sometimes I would sleep in my car because
Wow.
I had the contract at Jackson, but I wanted this job at UM. As a single mom, I have to be creative regarding how I'm gonna fund my kids' education, and one of the benefits is tuition remission for your kids. So I saw this as I must work at UM, so my kids have a choice of a university. That's their choice, but at least I can provide that for them.
Wow.
So a lot of people don't know that I was working day and night, and I would sometimes even shower at work and sleep in my car and
Wow.
not see my kids for days on end. But at the beginning it didn't work out, and they hired someone else, and that same classmate that I saw back, or that I talked to back in May, I saw her in the parking lot of a clinic when I was picking up my grandmother from there. And she's like, it's so funny that I see you because they want you back at UM.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh, really? So they're going to have to call me because I'm not going to call them.
Right, right, right.
So they did, and I started working there again, and I've been there since January 2009. And
Wow.
that's when I feel got my sensitivity and my empathy back, because you get a connection with the patients. With the patients that we see, they come in every 3 to 4 weeks, and you develop that relationship. And then things weren't working very well, and one of my things that it's important to me is that if I'm going to do a job, I'm going to do a good job. And I was talking about that. I was talking to one of my friends, and she's a nurse, and I was talking to her about reimbursement and insurance and this thing that I had to learn. And she's like, we're just nurses. And I'm like, don't say that. We're not just nurses. If this is part of your job, then you have to learn it. She's like, how did you learn it? I'm like, I remember having a calculator and looking at the numbers and punching in the numbers to try to see how they got to that number.
Right, right,
And
right.
that's how I learned. And I know you helped me a lot when it comes to insurances and understanding that. But it's just, I felt that it was a need that was there for the patients and for, the center itself. So it's something that I learned at UM. I think that we are, as nurses, patient advocates. um, Patients are not always informed, and we need to make sure that they are. We need to fight for them, and we need to make sure that they get on treatment. And at least that's how I see it. I mean, I've had conversations, as you know, as a manager with my staff. It's like, what about if that was your son, or what about if that was your daughter, your mother, or your sister? Would it be okay for the office not to call you back in 2 days? That's not okay. That's not acceptable. And we're to treat these people, and our patients, like they're our family. And that's what I go by. I try my best. It's not always a perfect process, but and we're human, and that's not to say that we don't have our good days and our bad, but I think that if our overall goal is to advocate for our patients, and just like they were ours or our family, then overall, you'll have good results. But it's not about perfection at any point. It's just trying your best. All you can do is try.
Yes, yes. I don't think that perfection exists at all. I always think everything is a process. So, Angie, when you think about your life, how important is spirituality, and what role does spirituality play in your journey, your life journey so far?
Well, a lot. I am a very spiritual person. I believe that, we do have guides of our ancestors, or just, um, you know, spirits that like us, or, for some reason want to be around us. So I'm very spiritual. Um, and I meditate a lot, or try to really listen to what they have to say. um and I do that, in the religion that I practice. It's Spirituality is very big, and I feel that when we um, listen to our guides, my mom and her spirit and her messages, that, it helps us get through certain situations. So spirituality is very important to me.
I agree. I'm the same with you. My spirituality is so important to me, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this anthology together. Because one of the things I know about women, I have been so fortunate to meet powerful women in my life. I don't care if it's my ministry and my work life. I've been really fortunate, and you are one of those women. Like I said, I met you at work at University of Miami, and something says, you know what? It's something deeper. I just felt this sense of peace, with this sense of power, just being in your presence. And it was just so refreshing. And I just thought you were brilliant. I'm thinking, how does this lady know all of this stuff? And I do this for a living, and she's just catching on and just being just not only good but amazing at it. So after someone reads your chapter, what do you want them to know, believe, and feel about themselves? What do you want them to know, believe, and feel about themselves after they read your chapter in the book?
Well, I want everyone to know and believe that it is a process, and continually improving ourselves is a lifelong journey. It's not an epiphany we're going to get to, it's not a peak. It's just you got to keep working on yourself. Know that you can do it. Anybody, anything, and it's cliche, I know, but anything that you really propose your mind to, you can do it. And it's not going to be a straight path, and it's not going to be something that's going to come and you're just, it's going to take work. There's going to be a lot of detours, a lot of deviations, but if you keep your eyes on your goal, you'll get there. Maybe not in the time that you think you want to get there, but you'll get there because as long as you're working on it. And it's a lifelong process, is what I feel. You have to believe in yourself. Nobody else can give you that power. And you have to know that regardless of what's going on around you, the world may be falling apart, but you can only control how you react to it. You know, you can't control what people do. You can't control how people feel about you. It's just how you react to it. And if you let all the bad things in your life, I mean, I have every excuse in the book to be out in the street, and feeling bad about myself, and and just say no because I didn't do anything with my life because my mom died and my father took off and nobody cared for me and nobody loved me. But no, be more than a statistic. Um, Believe that you can and you can overcome this, or whatever challenges you have in life, because you have control over that. Only you, nobody else. If you don't choose to go to school, that's on you. We live in a great country that, although you'll have a lot of student loans at the end, um, you can do it. It's there for you, and it's the opportunities are there for you to take. And not only is education going to help you professionally, it's going to help you personally, because your mind is going to open to how the world. The world is not Hialeah, Miami-Dade County, and Florida. It's so many different ways to do things, and you learn about a few when you go to school, and you get an education. And you can do it. I mean, it's you control that part of you, and take advantage of it.
Thank you for that. And as we end our time together, I have asked every author, what is the strength of your soul?
Well, I've learned very recently that it is resiliency and determination, and not let anyone step on me, um, because they want to. That's no, I may break and I may bend, but I'm gonna get back up for me, and because I'm important. And if you don't feel that you're important, because a lot of times we don't, feel that we're gonna do it for us, and then find something until you are able to get to that point where you do realize that you do matter and you are worth it. Um, but don't let anyone step on you. Don't be anybody's doormat just because they choose to. Be better than that.
Thank you for that. Listen, I know that you have your own book coming out. I'm so excited about that. So tell everybody how to connect with you and how to find you on Facebook and Twitter. And also tell us a little bit about your book that you're writing that will share your story and your own life journey with the rest of the world.
Well, the chapter in the anthology, The Strength of My Soul, is a glimpse as to what my life has been and the challenges that I've been able to some I'm still working on and some I've overcame. But this book is really a more complete story of myself. And it's just so people can know that as bad as things might get, you can get through it. If you just keep working on it. Just don't give up, and dust yourself up and get back up. You can find me on Facebook, Anjelis Oliveira. Don't have a Twitter yet, but I will. And I am, that book is one of those things that I'm just gonna have to keep working on until I get there. Don't have a time frame yet, but hopefully soon.
Well, I want to let you know that when you write your book, I am there to help you with that process. That I believe in you. I believe in your message. I believe that our mistakes and our misery are always there to help other people. So I want to let you know that I'm there for you, and it would be an honor to help you in that process. And people can also find you on the website of strengthenmysoul.com. They'll be able to connect with you. So I just want to say to our audience, thank you so much for spending time with me and Angelis today. We are so grateful that you have taken the time to learn more about her story, her journey. And I know in my heart that her journey, her story will inspire you and empower you. Just like she said, to never give up, even though it's hard. So I just want you to know that if you are thinking about giving up, think about her, her story, her struggle, and to think about her now, feeling really good about herself and feeling really good about the possibilities of her own life. So thank you so much for stopping by today. We thank you, and be sure to buy a book and look for her chapter. Your chapter is called what? What's the name of your chapter?
If I
I
can, you
forgot.
can.
If I can, you can. Oh my God, how did we forget about that? I'm thinking the name of the
Determination.
chapter. So listen, thanks so much for stopping by, Angelis. Listen, much love to you, and have a great holiday. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.